Hey class, this is your instructor, Jack Downs. I thought I'd spend a moment talking about a couple of MS Word features. One is comments, and if you've gotten back any papers from me, I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of comments, those little remarks that I make about your papers, and wanted to show you how they get created if you want to if you find yourself in a position to be commenting on a colleague's paper or an associate. Um, there's another feature called track changes, and I'll show you how to use that as well. Just briefly, I just want you to be familiar with the fact that these features are available on MS Word. So I won't spend a great deal of time about how to get to them, especially because the menu chain varies between the various uh, versions of MS Word, but I do want you to be familiar with the fact that they're around. So comments, we'll take a look at a document, and I guess I get the more important thing I want to stress is when would I use comments and when would I use track changes. They do essentially the same thing. They allow you to make um, comments or to actually change a document, and I would submit that if a document is going to change ownership from someone else to you, then the appropriate feature to use is track changes. Because what you're actually doing is you're taking another document and you're actually altering that document. And my position is that when you do that, that document then becomes your document, as opposed to commenting on somebody else's document where, say you have a friend, spouse, colleague who wants you to take a look at their document and make comments to it. You would not take that document normally and change glad to happy, if you thought that was a better word, or start revising the language itself. You would rather, with a red pen, mark what you thought, or in the case of MS Word's comments feature, a virtual red pen, you would comment on what you thought was appropriate to change. And you do that sort of in the margins. And you do that with the idea that you can take this advice or leave it. It's just my opinion. And so that to me is what the value of comments is. It's a reason that I don't, for example, ever use track changes when I when I read and review and analyze your papers, your work. I'm not. It remains your work. Sometimes I'll make comments like, if it were me, or I would. All that means is it's really a matter of taste or form. Other times I'll say strike, which means this is unnecessary. Take it out. So some of the advice I will give is take it or leave it. Some of the advice I give is this really would make a better piece of work if you were to do this. But the whole idea is that the document remains your document. You own it throughout the process. Track changes, as I mentioned, is a different thing. So just keep that in mind. Track changes gets used a lot in situations where you have some kind of collaborative work. In other words, a work is being created by more than one writer. And a great example, and one you see a lot in business, is the development of a proposal. You're responding to an organization's request for a proposal to do a significant finite body of work. And very often these proposals can be millions of dollars and maybe several hundred pages in their response. And so it's not one person's job to get it done. Normally a team of people is selected to create a proposal. And in that case, track changes is often used. And there are some additional controls. Normally, when you use track changes, you have several writers each writer will be primarily responsible, for example, for a particular section, and then they'll write that, and then it's reviewed by the other members of the team. And so when a reviewer makes a comment, the comment shows up in the document itself very overtly, very obviously, including there'll be a notation as to who MS Word keeps track of who makes particular comments. And there's generally an understanding at the outset, because these teams are normally formed for a finite period of time for a finite purpose. There's generally an understanding at the outset of how the ultimate document will be created. Is there one person, for example, at the end who, in the event of a tie, two people present opposing points of view about how a particular section should be treated? maybe there's a tiebreaker, one person whose ultimate responsibility, and that person will normally be the proposal manager, it has ultimate responsibility for the final language. Occasionally, although it's not used often, you can set up track changes so that you can lock people out from making deletions or changes to the document once the document process has started. But again, that's not normally used because the whole idea with a collaborative team effort is, 2 heads are better than 1, and 5 heads are better than 2, etc. So with all that said, let me just spend a few moments showing you how the comments feature works. So I have this really poorly written section here I just created. Let me make it a little bit larger so it's not such an eye test. Okay, so when I want to do so a couple of things about the housekeeping involved in commenting to another person's document. One of the things you want to keep in mind is if I'm going to, for example, comment to this document and it's called Commenting versus Track Changes, I'm going to imagine that it came from Joe Smith. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this document as a different name. Because if I save it as the same name that it was created under, then it's going to be hard to tell, is this the original document or is this the document I commented to? So I'm going to comment versus track changes. This is why you'll always see when you get papers back from me that it'll be your name and the assignment, and then there'll be something like Jack Comments. And all that means is the document you're about to open is the one that contains my comments. So the first thing I do before I do anything else is I open the document and I change the name of it so that when I send it back to whoever I'm reviewing it for, it'll be very clear that this is actually a slightly different document. It'll be the original document, but it'll have comments embedded in it. So sometimes in the course of life events, you're really much better off. This probably should have been off. So I'm going to go into my review feature. I want to show the comments, and I'm going to add a new comment. And you'll see it says Jack Downs made this comment, and all I'm going to say is off. I think you meant off. Is that off? Question mark. Is that right? And I come up here and I go, if you, I'll bet you meant, whoops, see, I broke my own rule there. Let me go back. I never want to change the language itself in the document, but I can come out here and say, I don't know why it does this, so frustrating. It'll put down these multiple, anyway, does that. And I'm going to say, don't you mean you here rather than a female sheep? Come down here and I say, and again, the thing to keep in mind when you're commenting to somebody else's work is I can say, gosh, did you mean chance? Or I could say spelling, question mark, which simply means I'm not sure how this is spelled, but this looks wrong. And when 100 people are interviewing for the same position, sometimes, and you'll notice I do this on your papers as well, I'll do a comment that simply is a question mark. Like, I don't get this. This doesn't seem to be an actual word. Can you put in what you meant? It may be. Here I might come down here and say, gee, I think do you mean B rather than BEE? To draw attention to your resume or applicant. And I go here, do you mean, I'll put a question mark. I have no idea what an applique would be in this context. Or I could say, do you mean application? Because that sounds like it would work. And again, keep in mind that you don't have to suggest alternate language. All you have to do in the appropriate situation is to say, this doesn't make any sense to me. Come down here. I remember a time when you should have taken a chance that would have, I'll say, you know what? For some reason, you've changed the persons from I, first person, to you, second person. I'll say, person switch, why, or if I was really feeling verbose, I might say no particular reason seems to be indicated, why you switch persons here. And I could just say, look at that sentence, that would have had a B, and that was when I first decided to go into fertilizer. I'll say, I might add a comment here that just says, I have no idea. Oops. I have no idea. I don't use this with you guys very often, but occasionally I'll say, I have no idea what this means. And then again, it's not contingent on me, the reviewer, to suggest alternate language. I frankly don't have any clue what the writer might have meant here. So this is how I might handle this. Is I have no idea what this means. Then I would save this document with the new name and move along. But I'm not going to, in this case, so I'll do that, file, save. I'm going to go back to the original document here. There it is. Okay, and let's talk for a moment about track changes. This would be track changes rather than comments. So I want to go back to my review feature. Here, let's see, to make this work, I think I've got to go all markup. And again, we talked about when you would use track changes, and I just want you to see what this looks like in case you've never seen it before. You're really much better off. In this case, I'm actually changing the document itself. I'm involved in a collaborative process with a group of other people. We've agreed before the fact that if I see what apparently are grammatical errors or punctuation errors or misspellings, that I am free to go ahead and change those things. So here, I've turned on track changes by clicking track changes. I simply type the word off, and what happens is the original OF is stricken through here, and the word off appears. And if you put your highlighter on the word off and right click, whoops, let's see, there, you just put your highlighter and let it sort of hover over the correction. It says who made the correction and when. You, I'm going to say, I think you meant you here. Chance, I think you meant chance here. Whoops. Let me highlight this whole word. But you get the idea. It will actually record all the changes I make. Down here, I could say, I think you want to insert an I rather than retyping the whole word. I can just retype an I. And you'll see in the left-hand margin, there'll be this line that appears that says, somewhere in the lines that appear to the right, we've made some corrections. And so be aware of that when you're going through the document. Because at some point, these corrections have to be accepted. I meant to show you with the comments how you get rid of those comments. Like you get a paperback from me and it's covered with red ink. And you'll take a look at the comments, you decide you either agree with the comment or you disagree, but in either case, if you're going to resubmit, which you don't have to do very often, but if you're going to resubmit, you want to delete the comment, in which case you would just hover over the comment itself, right click, and the word delete will pop up. I neglected to show you that, I should have. And here, same thing is, if I'm going through track changes, when I get to the end, I'm not going to make all the changes that need to be made here. There are a few of them, but here I'm going to delete one of the E's in the word be rather, to draw attention to your resume or app. I'll say, I think this should be application here. Okay, remember a time when you should have taken it. And again, when I'll finish that sentence and just say, I remember a time when I, just to be consistent, should have taken a chance that would have had a big payoff, period. I'm going to take out the rest of this because I have no clue where it's going. And so that's what I kind of have. And then when I want to step through this, I can start at the very beginning of the document by inserting my cursor at the beginning. I can take a look at the very first comment that was made, and I can accept that comment, and it'll ask me, okay, so it makes those marks go away as I accept. I'm going to accept that comment as well. Better off if you, I don't know why I correct, oh yeah, you, I'm going to accept that change as well, accept and move to the next. So you'll get the idea once you start playing with this thing, how it works. I was really more interested in kind of talking about the contexts, the times when you would want to use commenting versus track changing. So I hope this has been helpful, and I look forward to catching up with you again on another topic soon. Thanks.